Hey kids, Peter von Panda here. Just want to show you this 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's a car I don't own, but it's a car I have easy access to and I have been driving around a lot because it's owned by my mommy and daddy. Anyway, wanted to share some thoughts on it. Great little truck. What I love is, let me share the things that I like first. First of all, I love the styling. It actually is very similar to a BMW X5, kind of overall proportions and muscularness and, stance and everything else. But it doesn't really have quite as much, I don't know, embedded pompousness that the X5 does, in my opinion. X5 is a great truck, but if I were to actually pick between this one and that one, this is the one I'd pick. Now, the color on this one is a metallic red. It's probably not my favorite color, but one of the details that I really like on the Jeep are these kind of squinty headlights. So on kind of earlier years, this headlight filled this whole piece here. They put in a little bit of this this low eyebrow kind of deal under here and kind of squish those headlights, and I think it gives it a little more aggressive look. So I actually think that was a great change, and just overall I think the truck is pretty nice looking. Now this one also does come, as they all kind of do now, with, nope, that's not the right key, sorry, keyless entry. So you get a pretty big key fob, and and this one is, just FYI, this is the Limited. It is not the top package. It's basically the second from the top package. So this does have a lot of options, but I want to just point out a few things that you're going to miss without going up one more level, which is kind of important. But I'll get to those a little later. So you have keyless entry, GPS and voice recognition, the rear camera and sonar, which is really helpful. It's one of the things that on my terrain, we have the rear camera, but I don't have trajectory or the sonar, and the sonar is kind of the one I miss because it's kind of hard to see what's in that camera. The other thing that is kind of cool, which I can quick show you out here, is the fact that there's no gas filler or gas cap. On the gas filler, it's kind of like in the Fords, which have had a little while, a capless gas tank. That's super nice. It just is really convenient. When you first get a car that doesn't have a cap here, it kind of freaks you out. You're always wondering who jacked your cap. But the cool thing is no problem here on this car too. It'll run E85, which is kind of a nice feature. But that's a small thing, but I think every car should go toward that. And again, the locking latch here, which is kind of cool, so you don't have to worry about people siphoning your gas out. I don't know if they still do that, but it's one of those things to consider. The other thing that I can quick show you here that I don't really like is these alloy rims are great, but they're actually fairly small. They're actually 18-inch wheels, R18s, and they leave a lot of rubber around the tires, so you don't have a low profile tire by any means. You can get larger wheels, I believe, on some of the other models. The beauty of these is that it's a really comfortable ride. I mean, the car drives like it's a crossover. It is a really nice car to spend time in. I have driven X5s with the 20-inch or larger wheels, and you get more sports car performance and handling, but you sacrifice ride quality. So never had a problem. Hit a lot of potholes, a lot of rough terrain with these tires, and they're really comfortable. So don't sweat that. Now let me get into one last that I really did, which I think is kind of underrated. I actually talked about this in my train. The rear seat back here, these seats are set for me right now at about 5'8". You can see lots of great leg room. This is not a third row seat car, but you know what? You could absolutely road trip in this car and have plenty of legroom and be really comfortable. But the cool feature is, unlike the Terrain with a multi-flex rear seating, these seats don't slide at all, forward and back or fore and aft. But this lever here does fold them, as you would expect for flat row or somewhat flat rear storage compartment. Now they don't go perfectly flat, and the cool thing is it automatically disengages the headrest, so if your seat is really back really far, you can still get this down. Like I said, not truly flat. There's definitely an angle, as you can see, but the cool thing is on the way back up, they kind of lock into position, and you can flip this up and it flips right back, and you can see here that this seat is actually more is more upright than the one next to it, and that's because you can actually adjust the angle of this back. So by holding up this lever and then adjusting the seat, this will be really hard to do since I have a camera on my hand, but you can slide it back and even lock it in as far back as there. So essentially you have a reclining rear seat. That is a pretty cool feature, and if I get in it, it'll be a little hard to see here, but if I get in this sucker, this is actually I would be really comfortable sleeping in this sucker on a road trip. So if you're going to take a Jeep Grand Cherokee on a road trip, this would be a perfect car to do it. Now you can just like any other reclining handle, you can kind of hold it in place, move your seat back into the position you want, and lock it in. This is a really great angle for just sitting and riding, but like I said, the rear seat here is a great place to be, particularly if you got to spend some time. Fantastic rear seat controls for all your passengers, and in this car you actually have heated rear seats, and they actually work really, really well. There's also power in a couple of variations here, 2 USB ports and a standard power outlet, so you know there's no shortage of ways to keep your electronics powered up. That actually carries over to the front here too. On the compartment down here, you have auxiliary audio, USB port, SD card, whoever uses that, and then a 12-volt accessory power jack right there. That is really, really cool. All right, on to the disc legs, right? Like I said, if you want to see the review of this car from a professional automotive reviewer with all the details of it, this ain't the place to go. I'm just pointing out from a consumer perspective what works. So keyless start, button is here. Put your foot on the brake pedal and fire it up. Okay, so let me get my cheat sheet here. One, I actually, this is where it's a love and a hate. I really like the instrument cluster. What you get are 2 actual analog gauges. It's going to be a little hard to see because of the light. The sunlight is right in our eyes here. And then you get this square instrument panel, which kind of hides into the circles of the analog clusters by kind of creating this little eyebrow that's a fake piece to that circular dial. So it kind of does a little bit of tricky illusioning. As you can see, the car about a year old and about 11,000 miles. That's pretty typical. The mileage on it, I'm not really sure what kind of mileage it's getting. You check that out, but it's probably pretty average. It has a pretty big gas tank. The fake wood, maybe it's real wood, I don't think so. This fake plastic wood actually looks great. It's a matte finish, which I like. I don't really like this dark oak color personally, but it works all right in this car. I do like the tan interior, and then they've kept the upper dash black, which helps on reflections. All right, back to my cheat sheet. Let me get to the disc legs here. First of all, let me talk to you about getting in this sucker. You know, any actual sport utility truck is going to have a little bit of a high entrance. This kind of competes in that crossover world though, and to do that, I think the step-in height has to be a little lower. So if you're going to get this and think it's going to behave just like a crossover, like my Terrain there, just be aware that this is actually kind of an uncomfortably high step. If you're a little elderly, a little less flexible, might be more of an issue. If you're in better shape than me, which 90% of America is going to be, it's probably going to be less. But as you can see here, I actually have to step up pretty high, and when I get my butt in the seat, I can only get my toe on the ground. I can't even get, if I just lift my toe up, I probably have like 2 or 3 inches before I can hit the ground. I can only get it with my toe, and so then you get in. I mean, I may be a little overly sensitive, being relatively short at about 5'8", but I find myself actually grabbing this grab handle up here to kind of almost lift myself in. Okay, you like that? Short people of the world, Grand Cherokee might not be for you. The other thing here is that this shifter is kind of ubiquitous now on the higher end Chrysler models. It's in the 300, I know, and various other Chryslers. I think they've actually done a better job of making this feel more substantial. It used to really feel a little more plasticky to me. It works by putting your foot on the brake and then hitting this button and pulling it down, and the shifter does move up and down, but then it always returns to center. So a couple of things to know about this is that when I first drove this, I was kind of pulling it back like that and getting it to drive instead of reverse. You actually have to be fairly ginger with it. You can easily, if you don't go all the way into drive, you can easily knock this sucker down to neutral and think you're in reverse, and vice versa. Getting into drive is actually pretty easy because now I can just pull it all the way back and I know I'm in drive. But these intermediate gears are kind of easy to miss, so keep that in mind. I love the way the shifter looks. I just like I like it. I wish it were maybe the side plastic. This might be a little nitpicky. This were not as smooth and thin feeling. You know, if it maybe had a little more chrome-like finish or something, it'd feel a little better. But it feels great in the hand, and I love the way it looks. It's just a little finicky to use. I'm not a big fan of that, but it works. The other thing that I will say is a really cool, but doesn't work all that well. It works pretty well. I would say it gives it about a 75% thumbs up here, is this voice recognition button. You hit this and you can say navigate to and say an address. 3 out of 4 times it's correct, 1 out of 4 times it's wrong. And usually where it gets it wrong is on the house numbers. So let me see if I can get it to work here. Navigate to 1908 West Dickens Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. Processing.
21908.
So
that house number wasn't found on the selected street. Say the house number again.
So I'm going to hit that and kind of cancel it.
Canceled.
Here. All right. Okay. So what I said, actually what it got right there is I said navigate to 1908, and it recognized the 2 as the number instead of to the point of the destination. So I guess you just got to be careful. You can't really use natural language like you would with Google Now or Siri. It's just kind of frustrating when embedded software in a car is not as good as the stuff on your smartphone. But just a little bit of a nitpick, but it is really cool to be able to shortcut the destination. So overall, thumbs up. But you know, if I could have the CarPlay or Android car software, I would certainly take that over the embedded stuff. The only other thing I'll throw out here is that despite this car being the second trim level from the top, you would think it'd be pretty well equipped, except for the sunroof, which this car doesn't have. But what you can't actually get are the rain sensing windshield wipers on this car unless you step up to the next package. I thought that's pretty frustrating because there's a lot of cars. There have been cars for years with rain sensing windshield wipers. This one that doesn't have it, and you can't even get it without going to one more convenience package higher. Which adds, I don't know, a couple thousand, $3,000 more to the price of the car, which is already a fairly expensive car. But it's just kind of one of those things where I've had rain sensing wipers on previous cars, and it's super convenient. I miss them when they're not there. I was shocked that they're not on this car, and it's kind of a fairly big miss for Jeep on this one. But overall, really like the car. It's comfortable. It doesn't print as a huge car either whether people are viewing you from the outside or when you're inside. You know, it feels relatively tight, compact, and comfortable, and it's just really an enjoyable car to have. It's probably one of the nicest cars, the nicest SUVs I think are on the road. So Peter Von Panda, that's just my opinion on the 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited. Out!